Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. Today, I was really inspired by an experience I had, which I'm going to touch on a little bit further on in the episode, but we are talking about breakfast, some grab and go options you can have available for you and your family, meal prepping for breakfast, and how you can really ditch the drive-thru. Before we get into that, I wanted to give you a little bit of a catch-up. Really, I feel like last week I gave a lot of what's been going on recently. There's not too much outside of that I can really share with you that has been going on. The things that I've really been enjoying recently have been getting outside for walks. It's been so brisk and just the most perfect weather this last week or since last time I recorded. We also got rid of some of our chickens. So my family came and got their 40, and then we had somebody before that get their 18. For those of you that don't know, we raise both laying hens and broilers. I truthfully didn't know there was a difference until I started doing this on my own. This is our first year that we started raising laying hens, but it was so fun, and I think we need to continue doing it every year because I have more people asking for chickens than I have chickens, and that's a great problem to have because I am so passionate about accessibility to quality food. It's huge, and it's huge for me to be able to offer that to people and offer that as something that I can give them, right? Like, I guess that's what offering is. But in a sense, it just means a lot to be able to give people chickens that will feed their family. Like, that is the coolest concept. But my parents and I kind of went in on this together. So they got their, I think I said 40. They actually got 72. We had 155 total. We ended up losing about 6 of them, which is actually a pretty good percentage, unfortunately, to lose chickens, just because we've had them for the last 6 months. They will now start laying in the end of August or early September. So I'm anticipating that time. We have somebody else coming to get another 40, somebody coming to get 4, and then I believe I'm delivering 2 to Lincoln later on this month. If that's still happening, I need to check in with that. But outside of that, we will be raising broilers in the next couple of weeks. So laying hens are typically going to be called that, like a chicken is what you think of. They produce eggs. They are not chickens that you would necessarily want to butcher for meat. Not to give you a whole anatomical lesson on chickens because you might not really care, but I think it's important just because it's obviously something I'm passionate about. So you wouldn't really necessarily want to eat a laying hen, you just want them for their eggs. So then you raise broilers. Broilers are meat birds. They pack on extra weight, extra muscle, and you really feed them for 6 weeks versus the 6 months that laying hens take to produce an egg. Broilers are ready in about 6 weeks. They get really fat, for lack of better words, but they're lean and they don't really move around much. They are not super active birds. We usually get Rhode Island Red. Oh no, that would be a laying hen. I don't know. They're the white birds. I don't have the name for it. Anyway, and we raise them. So we did one batch earlier this summer, which I know I've shared, and now we're going to do one into the fall, and we'll be butchering them ourselves with a couple other families because we go in on this with my cousin and her husband, and we will be butchering them then in October. So it's just really interesting to know the difference, and it's fun to be able to raise both, and that's just I'm continuously reminded of the blessing that living on an acreage is, and things that I'm doing now that I probably would have never ever seen myself doing. I'm kind of like not even forced into it because I'm willingly doing it, but butchering a chicken is not always on the top of my desire list, right? That's not super fun, but you have to think about just the ability that one bird has to feed you, right, for multiple meals. Then you can use their bones and make a really nutrient-dense bone broth, Or what we do is we usually sell most of our birds. And so this last time, I think we had 55 and we sold all of them. I think we actually ended up having 50. I gave another 5 to my cousin to sell. Yeah, and we didn't have any left over, which is something. We have a freezer full of animal protein sources, which is something I'm going to talk on very briefly when even it comes to breakfast, is just where you can source local protein sources, because what you're getting either from the grocery store or what you're getting from a drive-through is very, very low quality. And I'm going to share a statistic that I recently read about based on McDonald's. I think it's actually going to blow your mind. So I'm really excited to share that and really just jump into that. But let's first go into the segment of how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. I feel like I need to apologize for the long spiel about chickens, but really, if you can't tell, that's a bulk of what's happening in my life right now. But as I'm nourishing my body, I talked last week how I'm getting into those Form workouts. Form is a platform by Sammy Clark, and I'm really just continuing to do that. But there's a practice that she taught when it came to breath work. Breath work is something at the end of the exercise classes I lead, we always end with taking a few deep breaths together. But I've always realized that that's kind of hard for me to do. Even as I'm recording here, I feel my breathing be really, really shallow. I'm like gasping for air. And it's because throughout the day, I'm not taking that full deep belly breath. And so what she had us do at the end of one of our sessions, this was last week, is she had us think about our body in 3 parts. So when you inhale, you think of filling up your stomach, then filling up your lungs, and then getting oxygen to your brain. Okay, so I'm going to do it just so you get an example. So as I take a deep breath in through my nose, my belly, my lungs, my brain, and then you let it out. And that practice is so valuable, and it's such a nugget of knowledge that I would have never thought about. But even as I just took that deep breath, like I felt my whole demeanor just calm. I also felt my breathing become naturally deeper. So that is something I would encourage you to add in if you don't add in deep belly breathing, or if you haven't ever thought of your body in those 3 compartments of filling them up with air. That has been really impactful. So I actually brought that into the functional movement class I led yesterday. And I think those women really appreciated it, just because I love to continue sharing what I'm learning. And that's just one way I've learned how to support my body a little bit more this week. How I am nourishing my mind. I have been listening to audiobooks, a variety of them. I love to read, but I notice when I go on walks, I get so tired of listening to podcasts. Sometimes I just don't want a lot of high energy, very vocal, obnoxious podcasts in my ears. And I have some that definitely aren't, but there are some where like you just kind of need to be in the mood to listen to that podcast. Hopefully mine is a little different. Hopefully you always want to listen to me talk. But if not, I understand, right? Because I just like to, even when I listen back to my podcast, I'm like, okay, Bailey, you just need to be calm. Like, yes, those high energy, high intensity podcasts are enjoyable. I'm somebody who has become much more calm since I've gotten married, and I hope that translates to the podcast because that's what I want to listen to. And so I notice when I listen to audiobooks, I actually do usually have to speed them up a little because I'm like, okay, chop, like we've got to get on with it. Sometimes they read so slow. But I have really been actually enjoying that, especially having just one audiobook that I only listen to when I go on my walks. I feel like that has translated into me wanting to get outside and walk a little bit more and make that a priority each day, just because I have an audiobook that I want to listen to. So if you struggle, and this is kind of something that just came to mind that I'll probably implement with clients, but if you struggle getting outside for a walk, maybe you just need an audiobook that is only designated for walking. And so then when you know, oh man, I'm really excited to listen to that audiobook, or I want to know what's going to happen, you know that you have to go outside and walk in order to hear that. Or if you want to be more consistent, right? Find an audiobook that you can't put down, that you want to listen to all the time, and then you might find yourself going back and doing that more frequently. And then finally, how I am nourishing my spirit. I recently, and I can't remember if I've shared this, but I recently got back on the Bible app. And what is really fun about that is they have two things that I'm enjoying. The first one is they have a Bible study every single day about a new topic, and they usually have somebody like an author or a celebrity or an Olympic athlete just give a little spiel about the verse of the day and what resonated with them, and then it leads you into a devotional. Not that I think that our time with the Lord needs to be short and sweet and condensed, but I've noticed on days when I don't make it a priority, that is something I am still making a priority. Maybe sitting down with my Bible I'm not making it a priority, even though it should be, right? I'm not. And so what I know I can do in supplement of that is to listen to the Bible apps, both their devotional, but then they also have a prayer section. So like I've set an alarm on my phone through the app. So I think it's at 7 a.m. every morning. It'll alert me to pray. And again, it's just creating that intentional time. And so I've really actually have enjoyed that a lot. I've shared some of those verses on my stories just because I feel like the verses always come at the right time, which, God's timing is going to be perfect, whether or not we can see that in the moment. So I've been trying to share that some, and I really do love that resource. Okay, let's get into the bulk of today's episode, why don't we? Don't need to ramble on about any more chickens or any more random things. We're going to get into what you maybe came here to listen to, and that is how you can really prioritize breakfast and make breakfast an easy meal to get all your nutrients in for that meal, obviously. So then you have energy and you're not tired and you don't have a headache and you're not hangry and you don't have mood swings and you don't have that afternoon slump and you don't find yourself binge eating in the evenings. Those are all very, very real things that I've seen within clients, that I've worked with clients through, because I know how real it is. And before I share anything, I wanted to tell you that if you message me through any platform, Facebook, Instagram, email, text messages, if you have my number, what you can do is actually send me your email and I will send you back a guide with all of this information perfectly laid out. That's a guide I don't offer anywhere else. Nobody else is getting that outside of you, because it's not a gift, but kind of an act of love that I want to give you for just listening to the podcast. So again, send me your email. I will send over the guide all about breakfast. So all the brands that I'm going to talk about on today's episode, all of the different combinations you can make with meals for breakfast, all of the meal prep recipes are going to be included in that guide. I'm not going into detail about those on the podcast, but if you want that guide, I will send you the exact recipes that I'm referencing. And really, my goal is just to make it as simple as possible. I'm also going to send over a Core 4 guide attached in that. So within this little package of this breakfast guide, you'll also find a reference to the Core 4 and a little bit more of an explanation on what that is, maybe what your protein calculation is. But yeah, I want to send that over to you. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and I will email it right to you. Check your junk mail. If you send me that and you don't receive anything within 24 hours, please let me know. And otherwise, it's in your junk mail. Okay, so just always check junk. I don't know why they go there, but somehow they do. I just wanted to put that out there because I'm going to be sharing a lot of brands that I love, a lot of recipes that I love and come back to. And you're only going to really get the full detail if you get that guide, okay? I'm not trying to sell you anything, genuinely just want to send you that to help you create a better breakfast for you or your family. So I wanted to start first with talking about grab and go options. And I think the easiest way to do this is to just share brands that I love. So a lot of these are going to be maybe ones you've heard, but maybe ones that you'll need to get at like a Whole Foods or a Natural Grocers or a Thrive Marketplace. I shop with clients most often at Walmart. Walmart is the number one place that we shop as a family because that's what's closest to us, but there are some things that you're going to maybe need to order online, okay, or go into a different store. So the first brand is Lovebird. I actually heard about this from Lyndon, And this is a cereal brand. They are glyphosate-free, organic. All of the ingredients are listed on the front of the box. Super high quality cereal, super delicious cereal. And it's one where you can feel good about eating a bowl of cereal and have no guilt around it. Maybe you don't feel any guilt around it anyway. I know for me, sometimes like a late night bowl of cereal just really hits differently. And having a good option to grab instead of like a Kellogg's or a General Mills, whatever slew of crap that they put in their food, you have a better option. If you want the Walmart version of this, it is not going to be as high quality. The ingredients are still okay. That is going to be Cascadian Farms. They only now offer, I think, one maybe box of the Cascadian Farms at Walmart. I've noticed that a lot of my favorite health brands at Walmart are showing up less and less on the shelves. I don't know why that is. I feel like it's mostly with breakfast foods. Maybe they're just rotating, trying to push other companies. But even when I talk about Birch Benders, which is another brand that I love, they do like pancake mixes. I love them for a breakfast, like a super easy pancake if you just want to like put something on the skillet or prep them in advance and then put them in the toaster. Birch Benders, if you don't want to mess with making homemade pancakes, is a great option, but I've noticed at Walmart they only have their keto option, which I don't love just because it contains dairy and I'm lactose intolerant. But they've replaced the other types of Birch Benders products with the Bob's Red Mill, and those both contain dairy. So if you don't have an issue with dairy, Bob's Red Mill would be okay. Otherwise, I do really like Birch Benders. Kind of along the lines of cereal and granola, Purely Elizabeth is another great one. Gluten-free, dairy-free, great ingredients, organic, very simple. Love that brand. I will usually get her granola, and that's honestly the only granola I will buy. And then when it comes to breads, if you are unable to locally source a sourdough loaf of bread, which is always what I'm going to recommend, just because I love the fermentation process of sourdough, how it's a little bit easier on your gut, even if you're not gluten-free. Dave's Killer Bread does have some pretty okay options for bagels, English muffins, their regular toast. I shouldn't say anything negative. They're not bad. The ingredient list is just a lot longer than a sourdough bread list would be. So when you can, always sourcing local sourdough bread, I think is the best way to get that piece of your breakfast component. Otherwise, Dave's Killer Bread, I've used their English muffins before. If you want to do like a makeshift sausage egg McMuffin that you maybe love at McDonald's or your favorite breakfast place, that would be a great option to use. And then getting into protein powders and really just protein sources. So when I think about breakfast, I'm always first identifying how I can structure my breakfast around protein. And I know this might be a lot different for some of us because we maybe grew up with Pop-Tarts or high C orange drinks. My family was just talking about how much we genuinely love a Pop-Tart. And I'm sure if I ate one now, it would not taste as delicious as it did when I was little. But I remember going to my grandma's in the morning for breakfast. I would have a s'mores Pop-Tart or a cinnamon Pop-Tart. I also love the wild berry. And that would be my breakfast. Or waffle crisp. That was another go-to with regular milk. And then I would have a high C little juice box. And just thinking about the lack of protein in that meal, and that's not a shame on my grandma, on my parents, on anyone, because we truly just didn't know better. I didn't know better. If I could eat a Pop-Tart, by heck, I was going to eat a Pop-Tart because I loved them. Something my mom didn't really buy probably until my brother was a little bit older. And so it was like a treat at grandma's when we would go there before school for breakfast. I'd get a Pop-Tart. And it was my favorite, right? I loved them. But most often, our favorite breakfast foods do not contain a lot of protein, and that's an issue. That's an issue because then you find yourself getting to that mid-morning and you have a slump. Maybe you notice your mood is impacted, or you have a headache, or you start reaching for way too many cups of coffee, Or you get to lunch and you're like, I could literally eat everything that I packed and I didn't pack near enough food for lunch today because I'm starved. Protein is huge, 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 huge. Not to even mention if you're working out at all throughout the day, you need to be having protein. They typically say 0.6 to 1 ounce of protein per pound body weight. That's going to vary depending on how much physical activity you do. But I typically get 100 to 120 grams of protein a day if I can, and that would be on the low end of my goal. That's a lot of protein. So if you're not getting that in the morning, you're spreading that out between maybe 2, maybe 3, 2 meals and a snack, and then you're never really going to reach that. So protein is huge. I cannot stress that enough. So when it comes to protein sources, my friend Emily recommended the Be Well grass-fed protein. What I like about this, and it's different than whey protein. So whey protein, if you have an issue with dairy, can sometimes upset your stomach, which is why I was very hesitant to get this protein powder. But it's really cool because it's made with the, and I'm not going to pronounce it right, but it's not made with the whey from the processing of like the animal or the milk products, like byproduct that comes from the protein powder, but it's actual like meat animal sourced protein. Give me 1 second. I'm going to say that a little bit more eloquently. Okay, I'm back. So what I was trying to say is that instead of using whey, which is kind of rooted in having dairy in it, has lactose if you're lactose intolerant, this is made with beef protein isolate. So it's not actually utilizing whey, so there is no dairy, and it's free of all these allergens. And so that would be a brand I would recommend if you need a powder to make like a smoothie in the morning, or to add to the meal I'm going to talk about in a second. That would be a great protein, like a protein powder option. I also really like Anthony's pea protein. It's unflavored. It's not going to be the most schwanky tasting. It's kind of gross, but if you need something to like subtly put into food, that would be a good one as well. I really like that the Be Well grass-fed protein though is made with beef isolate, right? Beef protein isolate. So you are getting a whole food source of protein rather than pea protein, which is not as easily absorbed in your body. When it comes to milk, I make this switch with clients all the time because I think we all went through a phase where oat or almond milk was, quote, healthier for us. If you're lactose intolerant, yes, that could be an issue to do real dairy. There is just truly no nutritional value in oat or almond milk. And that is where there's going to be a big issue because you are getting no protein, you're getting no nutritional value, and you're probably getting a lot of added crap in both of those milks that you wouldn't be getting in a regular milk. So that's typically where I recommend Fairlife milk. What I like about that is that there is about 14 to 17 grams of protein per serving. So even if you're just doing a cereal, right, like a Lovebird cereal, and you add in your milk, you're maybe at least getting 20 grams of protein, which isn't a ton, but I typically say 20 to 30 grams of protein should be your goal per meal. So you're still going to reach that even just with switching up your milk, as long as you drink the milk once your cereal is all gone. But I would recommend to source raw milk if you can. This is more of a touchy subject, probably. Some people are anti-raw milk. They have a lot to say about it. Other people are in full support. I love my raw milk. I will do just a raw whole milk in the jar that we get it in. There's a cream top. I just shake it up. So many good minerals, so many good vitamins that you can get from that, as well as a lot of protein. Kind of backing up off of that, there are two more brands that I'd recommend when it comes to protein sources. The first one's going to be Applegate Farms. They have frozen sausage links. They've got frozen, just a variety of frozen breakfast foods that are going to be a better quality. That Fage or Fage Greek yogurt, I always get their lactose-free version, but I get their unsweetened, and it's just really thick and creamy Greek yogurt. Really great to add on to toast. I love to do a yogurt toast for breakfast, which I'll share in a little bit. And then if you can, source eggs locally. We sell farm fresh eggs, well, my family does, We will in the future as our hens start laying. So that is always going to be an option if you live close to me or you know where I live. I would be more than happy to supply your eggs for you. But find a source local to you where you can get eggs because the quality truly makes the biggest difference. When you look at the color of a yolk that is from the grocery store, it's like a dull yellowish color and it's kind of foggy. And really, I think a huge piece of that is just because that hen is not healthy. If you look at conventional chicken farming, those hens are not the most healthy. They're not being fed the best food. They're not able to wander around property and eat bugs. And that's what our chickens get to do. Luckily, we feed them a very simple laying blend of food. But then every single day, with maybe a few days they're not, but most every single day, they are foraging and they are in the grass, they are in our pasture, they are eating bugs, they are eating grass, they are just so happy. And there's such a difference in your eggs when your hens are happy. Our egg yolks are like a deep orange. They are so good and they're so rich in flavor. Truly does not get better than that. So sourcing local eggs is also going to be a huge benefit for your health and also just the nutrients that you're getting into your diet. Even if an egg from the store that looks really sad and pathetic is the same nutrient density as a farm fresh egg, which I really have a hard time believing, I would still choose to source locally just because based on appearance, you know the quality is better. Okay, so this leads me into a huge piece of every single meal that I create or I put together, and that is the core 4. You've probably heard of the core 4 so many times and you might be tired of hearing about it, but some of you might not. And so I'm going to briefly touch on what that is. Also, I have a whole series on the core 4 where I break down each section of the core 4 through a series of 4 weeks. So I would go ahead and go back and listen to those episodes. They were probably about 4-ish to 5 months ago. Utilize those because they are incredible resources to have. But just as I briefly talk about the core 4, again, I talk about protein being that foundation. Protein is number 1. So protein is one of the core 4. When I think about structuring breakfast, it's always around my protein source. Number 2 is going to be a starchy or a bread-like carb. Okay, so this could be your sourdough toast. This could be some pancakes or waffles, French toast, a biscuit or a tortilla. That's going to be that starchy bread-like carb. Number 3 is going to be fiber in the form of a fruit or vegetable. I always say fresh or frozen is going to be the best form to get that in. And then your 4th one is those healthy fats. Healthy fats are so great for your brain, especially if you work at a computer all day or a desk job. Your brain needs the fuel. That is where those fats come in. Energy comes from your starchy carbs. Good digestive health comes from your fiber in the form of a fruit or vegetable. And then that satiety, that feeling full for longer feeling, and just that building of muscle and strength comes from your protein. Okay, so those are the core 4. Again, if you need more in-depth explanations of what those are, go ahead and go back and listen to the other podcast episodes that I've done on it. Otherwise, I'm going to just set that as the foundation, and then I'm going to go into the 4 meals that I'm going to share with you, and these will be included in that guide. So if you message me and you want this guide, these will all be broken down for you to easily be able to follow. The first one is going to be egg bites with avocado toast. I hear people when they go to Starbucks or Scooters, they love their egg bites. And although yes, the quality is probably not the worst, they're way too easy to make at home for you to spend $7 on some egg bites, okay? So it really is what it is. You chop up your vegetables, you put in 2 eggs per muffin tin, you mix it all together, some salt and pepper, pop it in the oven. That's getting you your protein and your fiber. So if you can already kind of figure it out, there's 2 things that we're missing. We're missing our bread-like or starchy carb, and we're missing our healthy fat. So I always pair this with an avocado toast because, again, you want the protein, fat, fiber, and that starchy bread-like carb. These are super great because you can freeze them, and you can then also microwave them or air fry them from there. They freeze super well. They last probably, you could probably keep them in there about 2 weeks in the freezer if you don't go through them that quickly. But again, they're way too easy to make at home to be buying from the store. Number 2 is going to be a very new and very much improved overnight oats. If you've been here since the beginning being like 2021, I have been in and out of an overnight oats kick. And what I've noticed is how this has changed and progressed as my relationship with food has healed. And it's kind of beautiful when you think about it, not to get super corny and overly sentimental about food. But when I think about the overnight oats I made in 2021, I was doing, barely a fourth a cup of oats. I was adding an oat milk or an almond milk that was unsweetened, about 5 calories. And then I would do little drops of stevia. I hate stevia now. I would never recommend stevia as your choice of sweetener. But back then, I'm like, it's a 0-calorie sweetener. I'm all about being as skinny as possible because that's all I cared about. And that is what it reflected. I would do maybe a tiny drop of peanut butter and some fruit on top the next day. But it truly was that simple. And it was so sad. And now as I look at what my overnight oats look like, they're happy and they're delicious and they taste way better than whatever I was trying to convince myself of in the past. Okay, so how have my overnight oats changed? The basic recipe is still the same. My sweetener of choice is always going to be a pure maple syrup. If you have not tried this, you guys, you are missing out. It tastes like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, these overnight oats. Like, I cannot express to you how delicious they are. I also do about 1 tablespoon of chia seeds. Previous me would have never touched chia seeds because that's way too much fat. Little did I know how valuable healthy fats were to your diet, right? But this recipe is so good, and I've been making it actually to have before I go and work out in the mornings. I used to be somebody who would work out fasted, and I was very passionate about that. I loved to not work out on a full stomach. Well, that has changed, and when I talk about the other tips that I value when it comes to breakfast, I'm definitely going to mention why that is. But I just really love to have something that's just in the fridge already prepped. You can prep it for up to 5 days. So you can do 5 servings at once, stick it in the fridge, and you're good to go. The other swap I've made here is no longer am I using almond milk, which was causing my face to break out, causing acne, but instead I'm using raw milk. And raw milk, again, that is my protein source in this meal, along with the chia seeds. Those would be some protein. But that raw milk and that creamy raw milk, like that is what makes these so delicious. Whole milk would also be a fine substitute, but they're so good. So that is another recipe for meal 2. Meal 3 is protein pancakes. This recipe is included in my recipe guide, which you'll be able to find it there. If you do not have my recipe guide, again, I'll send it in that packet after today's episode if you would like that. These are a tried and true recipe, super easy, always making sure that you use maple syrup and then maybe add some fruit in there. So you've got your starchy bread-like carb with your pancake. You're adding in fruit for that fiber. And then I'd always would pair this with either those egg bites that I talked about before, maybe some scrambled eggs or bacon or sausage. On the side, there is protein, so you will utilize a protein powder to actually make these pancakes. So that Be Well would be a great brand of protein powder to use. So you're getting some sort of protein. I always like to just add a little bit more, and then maybe like putting some peanut butter on top of this, or maybe your side is like half of an apple and some peanut butter. Whatever you can do, again, to get back to that core 4, to be thinking about those 4 things that you need to be full, satisfied, energized, and to have great brain function throughout your morning into lunch. These are super nice too because you can freeze them and then you can place them in the toaster. And so again, easy making all of these things that you can prep ahead of time. So you really just have to throw them in a microwave or the freezer or the oven or the air fryer for a very short amount of time. I'm also going to include my tortilla recipe and my homemade biscuit recipe because I love a sausage, egg, and biscuit, but it's so much better when you make it from scratch. So I'm going to include that recipe along with the tortilla recipe. They are so easy. They are both such easy recipes. And although that might feel like a lot to take on right now, as I talk about these recipes or as you get these recipes in your inbox, just know that you don't have to do these all in 1 week, right? Spread these out along the 4 weeks or 5 weeks, right? Try something new every once in a while. And then I kind of wanted just to round it out with giving you a bonus 4th recipe, which is my sourdough yogurt toast. You might have seen me post a lot about this, but it truly is what it sounds like. It's a nice thick slice of sourdough bread. I do about 1/4 a cup of that Fage lactose-free Greek yogurt. That's about 20 grams of protein. I'll add fruit, a drizzle of peanut butter, some bee pollen or honey, and there you go. Some cinnamon on top to help balance blood sugar, and it is the most easy breakfast. It sounds maybe a little intimidating, like why the heck would you put yogurt on toast? But I promise you it's so delicious. Okay, so I want to round this out with a couple things. So I'm going to talk about other tips that I want you to consider when you are thinking about breakfast. And then I'm going to finish with and you guys, you might not want to hear these next things, but I'm going to be talking about what the drive-through meals that you're getting actually consist of. That might be something where you're like, oh, I don't want to know what's in my, sausage, egg, biscuit at McDonald's. I'm going to kind of expose it just because I want you to be aware, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so first let's get into these other tips really quick. First one is not to eat and drive. Not necessarily even for your own safety, which is of course so important, but when you eat distracted, your brain cannot comprehend what's actually going on. I've had this happen, and maybe you can relate way too many times where you're driving to go somewhere and then all of a sudden you get there and you've been eating the whole time that you get there. And then you're like, oh, I don't even feel like I ate anything, right? That's that mind-body connection that so many of us are so out of tune with. This is going to be the same thing if you're scrolling on your phone while you eat breakfast, or you're turning on the news or the Good Morning Show while you eat breakfast. Your brain isn't comprehending what's going on. Remove those distractions. That is a primary thing that I focus on with clients, is removing distractions while you're eating. Being mindful about when or how you're eating. So don't try to eat on the go. Take it with you to work if you need to. Spend an extra or less than, get up about 5 minutes earlier, or spend 5 minutes less on your hair and just sit down and eat some breakfast if you need to before you head to work or school. Number 2 is to not use weight loss as an excuse to skip breakfast. There is 0 circumstances where I would ever tell somebody to skip breakfast. I'm even working with a client who really likes to fast, and in most cases I would say, yeah, that's not something we want to be doing. But with her, there's some things where it's a little different, but that doesn't mean I'm telling her to skip breakfast. I still tell her she needs to get some source of protein and fat and some nutrients in the morning for breakfast. So for her, that looks like sipping on a cup of bone broth with some gelatin. Is it ideal? Is it the core 4 perfectly? No, but I know that she is getting what she needs to be satisfied until her next meal. She's not overeating at her next meal because she's skipping breakfast, and it's also not breaking her fast. For people that do that, again, it's not something I recommend, but I am willing to work with people depending on their circumstances, which is why everybody is so bio-individual, right? Not the same thing works for every single person, but the one thing that works for every single person is to eat breakfast. And it is not an excuse to say you're wanting to lose weight, so you're skipping breakfast, because we all know, and I know from my own personal experience, that you're probably overeating at your meals, or you're undereating completely tanking your metabolism, or you're eating really, really late at night. And things that are probably way higher in calorie than you should be consuming because you're like, well, heck, I didn't have breakfast. I can have these extra calories. It doesn't work that way. If you want to support your body, you need to eat consistently throughout the day. And final one here, most important one, is that you need to be eating before you have any source of caffeine. That doesn't mean if it's tea, if it's coffee, if it's a matcha, if it's a Monster, if it's a Celsius, like you need food before that, okay? That is a huge, huge one, and I promise you can save yourself so many digestive issue stressors and symptoms if you eat breakfast before you have caffeine. So I'm going to leave you with those. And we're just going to finish because today I was in Lincoln with Nate and we were stopped at a red light and we looked over at the McDonald's drive-thru, and I kid you not, there were over 20 cars in their 2 lanes of drive-thru windows waiting to get breakfast at McDonald's. Okay, yes, this was before 8 o'clock, so I'm sure people were thinking on their way to work they would stop and get something from McDonald's. Eating breakfast, yes. I'm so glad these people are at least doing that. But you guys, we have to ditch the drive-thru, especially that first meal of the day. And that is not to say you cannot eat out. That is not to put a restriction on you, because you can do whatever the heck you want. This is just a podcast, right? You could take this in one ear, out the other. But if you truly care about your health, and I'm going to guess if you're listening to this, you probably do. Along those lines, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not the person that needs to hear that they need to skip the drive-thru. So maybe very gently send this to someone that you know would maybe benefit from some resources about meal prepping breakfast or some grab and go options, because you know that they are driving through McDonald's or Taco Bell every day. And I know there are people that are doing that every day. And I don't say that to be shaming anyone. I don't say that to make you feel guilty if that's you. I say that because I care about you. And I think when I read some of these facts about the drive-thru, you might think, okay, yeah, that might be the source of a lot of my inflammation. And if you truly want to heal your inflammation and heal your body from the inside out, there are sacrifices that have to be made. Okay, so these might not be the things that you want to hear, but I'm going to say these with a lot of grace, and I'm going to share some things that you might not want to hear with a lot of grace towards you and what maybe you are currently doing and some changes you would like to make or that I really would encourage you to make. Okay, so we're just going to start with McDonald's. Okay, because this is what I saw when I drove past McDonald's. I'm like, wow, there are so many people that need to hear a podcast about breakfast and meal prepping it, because I was eating my overnight oats in the car and I wasn't driving, because I know that's a tip that I just shared. Nate was driving. I was very present, but not to say I do that perfectly, but right, it's easy to prep things, okay? I want you to know it's easy. So we're going to take McDonald's, for example. We're going to get it very, very basic. So we're thinking a biscuit with an egg, sausage, thinking about you're probably going to get the meal because you know you're really hungry. You're going to get a side of hash browns, and then let's be honest, most of us are not just going to have a water. We're going to have a glass of orange juice or a coffee or a latte. That alone is going to bring you to about 870 calories in that one meal. Now, I am not a calorie counter. I don't have clients count calories. That's not something that I'm very hyper focused on. Some of you might be. I don't believe that a calorie always equals a calorie. When it comes to weight loss, maybe there's some truth to that. The quality of your food is so important. That is going to be low quality food. How I know that this is low quality food, and this is a study done by the University of Nebraska. Recently was told this by my mom, so I did confirm it, searched it up, did my own research on it. In one McDonald's hamburger, so we're going to think, okay, the sausage patty can't be much different at McDonald's in your breakfast. One McDonald's hamburger had over 1,300 DNA varieties, or DNA, whatever, yeah. 1,300 varieties of DNA is what I'm trying to say. Let me backtrack that. In one McDonald's hamburger, I'm going to repeat this for emphasis. There were over 1,300 varieties of DNA from all cows. Thank goodness. At least all this meat is coming from cows. But are you kidding me, people? So you have to think, okay, a sausage patty from McDonald's, probably very similar quality to their hamburger, which is coming from over 1,300 different cattle. That's a red flag. That shows a lack of quality. Okay, so then let's think about Taco Bell, because we also drove past Taco Bell and Nate was like, could you imagine stopping there and getting breakfast? And I truly could not, because I know how turdy I would feel the entire rest of the day if I was going to start my day with Taco Bell. So let's just say you go to Taco Bell and you get a burrito, and this is not to, make none of this food fun anymore, but I just want to give you some examples. So you go to Taco Bell, you get a burrito, that's going to be roughly 510 to 750 calories just in your burrito. No side, no hash browns, nothing. This is all coming straight from the McDonald's and the Taco Bell website. And then my third example is also coming straight from their website. So they're not hiding this information. It's just not on the menu board when you go to order. Okay, so when I looked at the ingredients in, what was this? Just the basic bacon, egg, and cheese burrito. There were well over 30 ingredients just in the tortilla alone. I'm going to start just by reading a few of these ingredients. Bleach-enriched flour, malted barley flour, water, shortening, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, salt, leavening, baking sodium, sodium acetate, phosphate, yeast, so borbitin, monocitrate. I'm not going to keep going, but from that list, you can notice I can't pronounce all those things. So then I'm like, okay, well, yeah, most tortillas, giving them the benefit of the doubt, don't really have the best ingredients. So let's just go ahead and look. There is guacamole on this burrito. So I'm like, let's see what's in the guacamole. Like really basic guacamole should be a guac, it should be an avocado, some salt, pepper, lemon juice. Okay, so guacamole here. Avocado pulp, that's going to be avocado, lime, salt. Onions, tomatoes, soybean oil, water, salt, distilled vinegar, cane sugar, garlic powder, disodium isonate and glycinate, dehydrated onion, spice, citric acid, mustard, modified cornstarch, sorbic acid, phosphoric acid, propylene glycerol alcinate, xanthan gum, natural flavor. We love when they put that one in there because we don't know what it is. Calcium disodium EDTA, but it's certified vegan. If you need anything, you can get the guac because it's certified vegan. And then you've got the bacon and tomatoes, which the tomato was the only one where the only one ingredient was fresh tomatoes. So again, we look at this. I'm not somebody who gets very up in arms about eating out. I will go and eat out. I will eat balanced meals, right? I will have some fun and eat out, but these foods are not even enjoyable to eat. And maybe you've realized that by now, and maybe you haven't. And this is, again, I'm not shaming you if you enjoy these foods, but truly eat these foods this next time you do it and think about how your stomach feels after it. Be very, very present with your food. Give thanks for this food, and then be very present with how your body responds to that food. When we are aware, I think you notice you feel a lot different. Okay, so to round this out for my folks who are going to say, Bailey, I do not eat breakfast. I will always do my caramelicious latte before I eat breakfast. To that, I would say, let's go ahead and look at Scooters, okay? All right, so if you order caramelicious at Scooters, you are looking about 380 calories just in a medium caramelicious. See, that would be a medium iced caramelicious with oat milk. If you were to get this with whole milk, which is always their default, something that is a fun fact, when you go to a coffee shop, their default is whole milk unless you specify otherwise. That is going to be 430 calories just in your caramelicious. So again, maybe you're not somebody that cares about calories, whatever, that doesn't matter to you. In this medium caramelicious, which we all know, some days we need a large, you are getting just in the medium 54 to 63 grams of sugar in that latte, in a medium iced latte. Folks, that is alarming. That is very concerning. And if that is the first thing that's hitting your system, it's very, 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 very easy for me to see why you have a headache and why you're crashing by 10 o'clock. And then why you have no appetite to eat lunch, probably because you have an upset stomach because you had a caramelicious for breakfast. The differences in grams of sugar are dependent on if you get oat milk or if you get whole milk. So again, let's take away all those numbers and let's just look here at quality. If you decide to get oat milk, you are getting over 15 different ingredients in your latte, which you would think a Caramelicious latte should be a syrup, it should be milk, it should be ice, and espresso. 4 ingredients. Nope, there's 15. If you get whole milk, you'll be pleased to know it's only 6 ingredients, so a little bit better than the 15 that would come from the oat milk. And you guys, I do not say these things to put food fear into you. I don't say these things to make you think I do everything perfect and that I'm just here hovering over you, trying to control what everybody's consuming. That is never my intention. My intention is always to educate and inform, and I said this last week, and I'll probably say it again, is that there is nobody paying me to give you this information or not give you this information. So these companies that I don't like, I will expose and I will talk about because there's nothing they can do telling me not to do that, right? Which maybe I shouldn't say that because watch there ever be a lawsuit against me. All I'm saying is I will share the brands that I love and I will share the brands that I hate. I'll share the restaurants that I love. I will share the restaurants that I dislike. That's not to be evil. That's not to be shaming. That is just truly to be real with you, to inform you again that there's no financial backing here. There's nothing keeping me from sharing this information. So why wouldn't I? I want you to be a conscious consumer with everything that you eat, with everything that you buy. Even if it's not the best option, I want you to know that you have the control to make a decision that is good or a decision that's not so good. You have that power. And when we take back the power and we have more of a say on what we fill our bodies with, what we fill this temple that God has given us with, that's what it is, right? We were given this vessel. And to have a vessel that even is able to digest food is a blessing. So why wouldn't you want to honor your body by feeding it really, really well? And I think when we think about it that way, investing in our health, investing in your body, investing in food doesn't feel like a waste of money. We all know groceries are expensive. We all know that restaurants are expensive. That fast food that is the crappiest quality food you can get is expensive. We know that. And I think we would rather complain about it than view it for what it is, and it's a choice. It's a choice to maybe spend a little bit more and eat really well and feel good and feel energized and not have all these inflammatory symptoms. Or it's a choice to eat really, really bad and suffer those consequences. And I want you to be able to make the decision that feels the most aligned with you, which of course, as somebody who loves people and loves caring for people and loves helping people, I want you to do what is going to support your body. I want that for you, but I can't want that for you more than you want that for yourself. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it because I think there's probably a lot for you to think about here. If you notice that you align more with like the McDonald's, Taco Bell, Scooters, there's just some things to think about. And I love that I'm able to give you resources to hopefully make this transition towards healthier options feel doable and feel achievable because I care about you. Even if you're somebody who listens and you've never told me that you listen, know that you are cared about, that you are prayed for every single week because I want to use this platform as an opportunity to help people. Even if you don't know me, I don't know you, you are still cared about, okay? So it's time to care about your own body as well and do something about it. This should be fun. This should be exciting as you enter into this next week, thinking about the things that you can make and prep for breakfast. So it's super easy. With that, let's go ahead and just close today's episode in prayer. So dear Lord, just thank you for this podcast. Thank you for a platform to be able to connect, to share, to be vulnerable, to be honest and open with people, and just get that mutual connection, right? To get to talk to the people who listen, to get to know and just help them along their journey. I ask that this podcast reaches the ears of the right people and that it's just continued to be used as a platform to praise you for the body you've been given us, and that as we head into this next week, we all just recognize the temple that you've given us and how valuable taking care of that temple is. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey, baileycn@outlook.com. If you want my email, it's linked below. Connect with me on Facebook, really anywhere. I will send over that guide for you with a full breakdown of today's episode. Just got to send me over your email and I'll get that sent right out to you. I'm so excited to see how that guide helps you and helps you head into this next week, meal planning and prepping some incredible breakfasts. So with that, I will talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.